Hi, I'm Robert, president of Permaboss. I want to introduce the Rhinestone machine to you. The reason I'm doing all the videos personally is to make sure that you know who's responsible for making the machines and for you to understand that we make all the machines here in Canada. In 2008, we made an initiative to stop importing cheaper product from all over the world. The markup is very attractive, quite honestly, because sometimes you can have up to 300% markup on a machine just like this because it's made overseas. But what you don't get is you don't get the same hardware, the same quality. You don't get the wiring done here. I mean, when we initially started and checked it out, we had machines that had the ground cable being used for a return on electrical. So all the machines that we have can get an electrical authority sticker. They pass and exceed every country in the world. It's a myth to think that when a machine is sold in the United States of America and it's CE approved that means anything here, because it's actually a self-declaration. So coming from a medical background, we decided to make all the machines exceed all the worldwide specifications, and they can actually get an official hydro sticker on it because of the way they're made. So I'm here in the shop. The mezzanine above me is where all the electronics are made and brought down and assembled in the machine. Our machines do have some Asian component in it, basically the mechanics, but other than that, like the hardware, the stuff, the discs that are very expensive to make here, and that assembly where the mechanical movement is, but every wire, every hose, and all the electrical and air components are basically installed from scratch here. That's important because when we introduced the Rhinestone machines in North America in 2001, we only had the European machines. What we have done is create a market, but our whole process over the years was specifically to give the user of the machine the ability to be the manufacturer. And when you're buying components, which is the rhinestones, and you're buying them here in your country, like Canada, USA, or Europe, the problem is that you're not buying them direct, you don't have the margin. You should be buying crystals for 0.001 of a penny, which means that when you do a full front logo in rhinestones, you owning this machine are the manufacturer, and you should have that markup from 35-40 cents to $4 to $5. That alone, getting a reliable source of suppliers is a big challenge because, of course, you can get 40-50 people on Alibaba type of websites, but you'll find over time that half of them are sitting in their bedroom and know a bit of English and can create a website and broker a deal for you. And then as the orders get bigger, I've heard horror stories from people who wanted to go a different route, only to find out that they got a few little orders, then they place a big order, and then nothing comes, and there's no way of getting your money back because it's overseas. So we want to prevent that, of course. We don't have a back end on the business. That's important for you to understand, because most businesses are like the concept of the inkjet. Get a machine maybe a little bit cheaper, or if I'm a good salesperson, get you to pay full pot for this machine, but then have you on the back end for life. And that margin, buying your stones direct from the people that we refer you to, who are essentially the manufacturers and have a 7-8 year history, and we have customers since 2001 spending probably in the millions with these people, they will give you first quality. They will give you the stones that will stay on, that won't break, and if there's a problem, they'll back it up and they'll support it. But you don't even want that at the front end, because that order where the stones fall off is going to be your best customer. And that best customer is not going to order from you again. So you really can't afford to have it in the first place. But I got off track. What I wanted to say is that it's very important you have high quality equipment, because when it breaks down, it's going to happen on a long weekend when you're running full tilt 24 hours a day with the machine. We give you a 2-year unlimited use warranty. The technician actually shows up on site and will train you how to care for the machine. The machine includes a spare parts kit and a little toolbox. Why? Because most things that go wrong are a little bit wear and tear related, which is very common. And there are things that you can replace on your own where you don't need a service call. So out of the head office, we're selling machines as far away as Australia and South Africa and Europe and all over North America. So even if you're on the continent where the majority of our customers are, you don't have any concerns if you're in California and we're completely on the East Coast as far away. Or if you're in Hawaii, we've got machines there. You don't have to have a worry, because you're a phone call away, you're FedEx away, and you have the things you need and you've been trained on how to do it. So if you meet me at the trade shows, in the books we have, you'll see that I have 3-page checklist of the training checklist. Our tech won't leave until you signed off on that. And before that, while your machine's being made, we are actually helping you do the marketing, checking your website, checking your literature, checking what you're doing, how you're positioning it if you want that help, so that when the machine arrives and you go into production, you're in full swing. As opposed to most people, wait, the machine comes, the payments start, and then you're waiting for the business to get going. So we want to avoid all those issues. So a big thing is quality of the machine. Everything is steel, and it's not very light or easy. I'll leave the lid open. I'll probably close it when I'm talking. And you've got a touchscreen based system, and it's so easy to operate because you just have to press run once you set up the job. This is a little area where, if you want, you can keep a history of exactly what the machine was doing if you ever need to send us a file or we need to find out. So I'll let that get started for a sec. Does a calibration, checks everything out. So it's going around to gather the stones. So on the machine, it has the methodology of checking everything. Let me close the door so I can talk here. So it has the methodology of checking and verifying and double checking that the stone is being placed. You can put the machine to a high-speed maximum, or you can put it at a comfort zone so you can get the most, let's say, mileage and accuracy out of it. It doesn't help to quote you a crazy number of speed, only for you to have to go afterwards and do a lot of hand correction. That defeats the purpose of the automation. It has 6 hoppers here, and what we do with the machine is we don't nickel and dime you. It comes with every conceivable disc that you need to do all the stone sizes, so that you can do all SS6, the 2mm stones, in all the hoppers. You can do all the SS10 or SS8 or whatever it is, in case you have a design like that. And all the discs are dual-sided. They're all labeled, so you can figure out exactly which one to use where. And you're using components inside the machine that are brand name. Now I found out through traveling through Asia that they have multiple levels. So there's a brand that you can use that has the name on it, but that's not acceptable for use to our standards in North America. It's totally fine over there. Why? Because they're paying somebody $10 a day, and that's all he does is check the machines, and they can afford to have 2 or 3 machines and then have one up for parts and the other 2, working and all that. So we can't afford to have that here in North America, in a developing country, when your labor costs are really high. So they just switch colors. It switched to another disc automatically, and you're leaving that alone. A big thing that's important to know is, I'll just put this away here for a sec. A lot of machines that are built overseas end up having a table that's not quite as large as this, but the problem is it's made out of a lightweight fiber product. It almost looks like a fiberglass that's a bit thicker than 1/4 of an inch. And when you would look at this, if you can see it from the camera in different angles, if it's supported in the center, over time there's a sag. Now I've actually exaggerated this with a piece of paper, but what happens if you have a very little stone, you don't get good adhesion over here, so you start to have issues. And we solve that by putting in aluminum tables. We also noticed over all these years, because we were the first in the business, that you don't want to have to peel off the paper while it's in the machine. Why don't you just take out the tray and put in the other one and keep going and be productive and do all your quality control outside the machine, because whenever the lid's open and it's not working, you're not making money. So it's rather quite quiet when you've got the lid closed when I open it up, and there's some other videos on YouTube where the machine's a lot louder because the microphone is right beside it, but it doesn't change anything in your facility. It's the size of basically one of the small freezers. We always include it with a touch screen Windows 7 based operating system, and you will never get, quote unquote, the proverbial Chinese message where you don't know what the code is. A lot of machines are so-called dumb, so you're only putting a USB key in, but you've always got to reiterate, move files, and you can't do all the control from a touchscreen. I want you to be able to have all the facilities, all the calibration. I don't want you to have to use a tool to do any kind of calibration here. It's all done by your finger, with your index finger on a touchscreen. You can move the designs around, you see what's happening, you see the stone count, you have all the information you need to be very productive. And it helps you to know where you stand, because when you're across the room doing something else, you don't want to have to try and look for a little LED light You want to see from across the room if the machine's ready, waiting, done, next job, all that sort of information. So at the end of the day, we want to provide you with the highest quality equipment. The penalty for us is that when we make it here, we can afford to give you twice the warranty. I can't always compete with lowering the price every 2 weeks until you buy a machine so that Mrs. Smith, who's a hard bargainer, and Mrs. Jones, who's not a hard bargainer, they get different prices. So we have one price over all the years. We've always been able to prove that Sam and Mary and Joe and everybody paid the same price for the machine, maybe less for a small difference in the exchange rate on the country it was sold to. 2-year unlimited use warranty, all the spare parts you need. The technician is coming out on site for 2 days. They will not leave until you sign off, so you have to be comfortable. Has it happened? It's happened twice in all the years where our tech basically made a decision to stay longer, and the only difference was you had to change the flight. There was a small fee there and add the extra expenses for the hotel, but we wouldn't leave until the customer is satisfied. So if that's you, you've got that behind you. If you have any questions, follow us up on the internet. I'll get the door open and then you can zoom in and see what we're doing here. And I want you to take a look that there's very few stones turned over. I've used very inexpensive stones to prove that the machine can work when you work with all different types of stones. If you take a close look, you'll see different colors of glue. Why? Because I've used stones from different suppliers. It's very easy for people to say, listen, our stones are checked. They want you to use their stone and lock you into it because it's a huge margin. Imagine when you buy a $29 inkjet on sale, and every time you go to Costco, it's $60 for the cartridge, for one cartridge. Forget about if you have color, you need black and white, and you're in so deep with that. With these, I want you to be able to use the best quality stone you can find. I want you to be able to use 2 different brands in the machine and have it work and not need a special calibration or a setup. One last thing, I just heard the compressor go off at the back. Our machine uses 10% of the air consumption of traditional machines. So when we go to a trade show, we literally can run with the smallest of compressors to do the demo at the trade show. Now, I don't recommend it because when you compress air, you create moisture, but you can get away with a $300 or $400 air dryer and a medium-sized compressor. I do not want you, and you're welcome to, go spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a commercial air compressor, but commercial air compressor means a commercial service person has to come and maintain it, and it means that you're going to have a bigger repair cost. So I want you to get away with a $700 or $800 or $500 air compressor with a large tank, a $300 air dryer. Remember that cheaper compressor is louder, so you can reduce the cost on that. And not have a 4-page contract on what the buying conditions are and what the criteria is has to be met when you buy the machine. So we don't have that. I know I've seen that out there, and that's a problem because it's basically buyer beware, in my opinion, when you get a 4-page contract to sign about buying a machine and what you have to do, etc. That means that there's going to be issues. Okay, so if you have any questions, check us out on the web, look for references, and we'll go from there. I feel like jumping in like that video where they scream at you when you're watching a nice serene car sound, but I can't do that because I'll be killing off customers potentially. There you go. So that's basically finished, and what we've done is just for demo and video we can move things around. In this case, you've got on this job there were 2 stones upside down, and it just can't happen by fluke, but there's approximately 3,000 stones here, and that was what was upside down. And again, everything's like solid metal, solid aluminum, the highest quality of every component that we can find. And underneath is all the wiring, everything 100% done here with a brain that's made in the USA.